And we're live. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in. I can see a couple of folks pouring in. Thank you for joining in for yet another episode of GTM Rewired. We talk about marketing, we talk about AI, we talk about go to market, and how go to market, marketing, sales functions are all merging into one essentially. So even if we have different names, it's all about bringing in that revenue, getting those customers in. And that's what we focus on. And today I have an amazing guest who's a personal mentor. She taught me basic principles of AI, and I was just telling her she helped me discover Claude like some 1.5, 2 years, I think 2 years back. And that time I just knew of Chat GPT and Perplexity. And I took a session with her and she talked about Claude and she talked about how do you move from one model to another and peg them against each other, make them like kind of look at each other's content and answers and correct each other instead of you doing the hard work. So like treat them like your employees. And thank you so much, Lisa, for teaching me that. She's a veteran, guys, and I'm so glad that she took out the time today. And I would love for you guys to keep your questions pouring in throughout this session. So, quick introduction. Lisa is an AI advisor and agentic marketing innovator. And innovator is the word because that's what we're looking for. Lisa is going to share a lot of nuggets with us. So get your diaries out, get your notepads out, and record the session if you want to. And with 25 years of experience leading teams through major tech shifts, her clients have seen 35% better campaign performance, 2 to 3 times more engagement lives. And she's also been recognized as one of the 50 CMOs to watch. And of course, she's an agentic marketing innovator. Thank you, Lisa, for coming in today. And let me tell you guys, she's been there doing marketing before AI was called AI. It was called big data. There was AI before we saw Chat GPT and we realized there is AI. Lisa knew AI exists and she was using it for marketing and for a lot more things. So thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for taking out the time today.
Oh my gosh, what an introduction. I think I'm going to leave now. I don't think I can live up to that expectation. So thank you for having me, Swati.
Great. So I think today's session, because we have half an hour, so we'll start with the title of the session, Lisa. Today we're talking about human plus AI GTM teams, and what does it look like? Because there's this whole conversation around that. We can fire human like teams, and there have been a lot of recent firings. The reason might be profitability, but it's been guised as because we are deploying AI workflows. We don't need this many manpower anymore. So we're talking about human plus AI, and that's something that you've been discussing on LinkedIn as well. So could you tell us more about what is this future that you're talking about in which human plus AI teams work together, and how do you really prepare for it? I mean,
Yeah, so when I think about humans and AI, I think about superheroes, right? So some of your listeners and viewers might be superhero fans. I am, I like the Justice League, I like, the Avengers. And they have highly complementary superpowers. They have different skill sets, right? But they're all in it together to save the world in essence, right? And they're not competing against each other. And I tend to think about humans the same way. As I built my teams over my career, we have different superpowers. We don't hire people that are exactly like us, and I tend to actually hire people who are super different than me. And same
hmm,
thing in the world of AI. We will no longer just have all human teams. We will now have hybrid teams with human and AI teammates. And I believe that humans have different superpowers than AIs. So humans, we are, AIs, they are very good at being able to take lots and lots of data and being able to distill insights and find anomalies from lots and lots of data. And that's how we're finding, advancements in medicine as an example, right? It's also very even in that it can perform literally the same way, regardless of what's happening around it. We could be having an earthquake, a fire, a tsunami, and it will continue to help us with strategy or create blogs. Humans, on the other hand, we're not like that, right? We're highly affected by our environment. Me as a human being, I get sad, I get frustrated, I get overwhelmed. I'm in a pressure cooker. And when we're operating in a pressure cooker, we can't be our best selves.
yes.
And similarly, as humans, we don't have very good memory. Now, I myself, the aging process has not been kind to my memory, right? And all the beers that I drank in college probably killed a bunch of brain cells. So,
My
when I think about humans and AIs working together, they are truly complementary in superpowers, and we each overcome our weaknesses. So, it I think moving forward, used in the right way and using AI as a sparring partner rather than just something that validates our thinking will allow us to perform at a much higher level.
That's amazing. That's so beautifully put. And yeah, I absolutely agree. Memory is a problem. I mean, I think I kept saying that this is mom brain saying when I had my daughter, but now my daughter is 5, and I'm like still like that. That's now the aging. So my mom brain reasoning has shifted to this is just aging. So like I completely hear you. Uh, so we have an amazing question which has come in my DM. Like I said, there are a lot of shy people out there, and the question is very interesting. That with AI, I understand that a lot of time gets saved and we can do a lot more, but we end up doing so much more which is probably not even needed. So how do you like how do we balance that using AI will really save time? Because I find myself using AI like through the day, and probably that should have taken me lesser time to start with had I done this myself. So yeah, there's a long rant here, but you understand the question. So what are
Yeah,
your
I
thoughts?
do. And I'm going to get a little bit philosophical on this, and I'll make it super practical, right?
Mhm.
I believe that using AI to improve productivity should just be the floor of our expectation of what AI can do for us. We hear the headlines, do more with less, go faster, improve productivity, save time, improve efficiency. And I believe that if we simply use AI to make existing work faster and automate things, you can almost see how it can automate the human out, right? And
Mhm.
I'm not saying that it's bad to use AI for productivity. I'm just saying that should be the floor. What we need
Okay.
to do with AI beyond improving productivity is to actually use it to improve the quality of the outcome. So there's
Mhm.
faster, and then there now is better. And then
Okay.
ultimately, I think we need to actually reimagine the way we do work. So do
Mhm.
things that wasn't possible before, right? Because when we are doing things that weren't possible before, we begin to innovate, and innovation helps drive growth for the business. And when things are growing, when the business is growing, humans are always essential. Now, would we
Yes.
be hiring a lot more? Maybe not a lot more, but still more people when the business is growing. When the business isn't growing, even though you're really efficient, then humans are at a higher risk of replacement.
Mhm.
So this whole thing of faster, better, different is something
Yes.
that I really think about. We're kind of in that Henry Ford moment, right? Like you can't reimagine the future by simply automating the past. So I really
Yes.
push go to market teams to go beyond making things go faster and really start to reimagine what is now possible with AI. Because remember what I said, AI has different superpowers. So
Yes.
things are now possible, and things that weren't possible before because it was slow for human beings to do, it was
Mhm.
expensive, or it was really just hard to do it at scale. Go back to those assumptions because
Yes.
what might have been hard may no longer be hard today with the help of AI. So, and then from a perspective of making this super practical, I actually posed this question on LinkedIn yesterday, right? Like in reimagining work, first ask the question, what was hard before?
Hmm.
And is it still hard today? Or are we simply saying that it was hard historically? So,
Uh,
for example, I run into a lot of marketers where they were saying it's really hard to do vertical marketing because you have to personalize everything to a vertical, very discrete messages, and all sorts of things, right? Well, now it gets a lot easier because AI can help us distill from tons and tons of data to extract vertical specific insights or anomalies or messaging. I also have another marketer that said, we run lots of events throughout the year, and it's really hard to summarize key insights and customer survey responses Now it's so much easier, right?
Ye-
The other thing, from a competitive intelligence perspective, it's really hard for product marketing, as an example, or brand marketing, to constantly pulse the market. How often do we update competitive battle cards? Very
Yeah.
rarely, because it's super hard. But now we've got an AI that can constantly pulse the market, and then we could schedule it and say, hey, every Friday morning, I want a distillation of what are some of the key insights, new announcements, and various analyst reports that have come out over the past week. Tell me how that might impact how we position in the market and how we message based on our ICP. That was super hard in the past. Now it makes it a lot easier from an execution perspective, but the human is still essential to check that work and to ensure that we are applying right judgment to it.
Yes, I mean that is so bang on because there was this product by Google which was called Google Alerts, and when it came, it was a rage because you could just put in some topics there, and it would every day or like every week email you all the kind of content that has been written around this topic so that you're updated. And I said, now with AI, it will give me a summary. I don't even have to read these links because Google just sent me those links. It's like 10 years back I'm talking about, but that was a big thing that happened at that time. And 100% going back to, like, if this is not I tell my team what you said, that think of AI like magic. I mean, it is a magic box. So like the one you tell yourself that maybe this is not possible, because sometimes we feel, oh, this is too difficult, maybe I can't create that agent to do it. But maybe you can. If it does not involve physical labor, chances are a big part of it AI can do for you. But you got to just try, you got to just understand like how to build this out. We have a lot of questions here, Lisa. I think the first one is on the superhero piece, and the question is, which superhero is your favorite? I would say Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity. Okay.
Oh, that's funny. I've also written about this on LinkedIn because people ask me about my tech stack, because that's the
Mhm.
essence of
Yeah,
the
that's what it is.
question,
Yes.
right? Like, what does your AI superhero team look like? I actually think it's a very personal question. And the reason I say that is I have built my team, AI team, and others have built their AI teams based on their strengths and weaknesses, and based on my role, based on my budget, and based on what I'm trying to achieve and my business, right? And the team that I built will be very different from the team that others built. Um, at least for me, because of my role is largely around strategy and advising and thought leadership. My team actually consists of all of them. I have
Wow.
Claude, I have Perplexity, ChatGPT, Copilot,
Mhm.
um, what else? Gemini. I have a number of these, and then I've got all of the. I have Granola. I even use Napkin.ai. I use Notebook LM. And it's not because I love all the tools. It's not that, right? They all have different strengths and weaknesses. And I actually wrote a post about this, and maybe I'll be able to share the link later. But 55% of my usage comes from Claude, and I did this way before Claude Cowork and Claude Code came to be, because from my perspective, in at least my work, it's a really good strategist. It's a really good collaborator, and I have used it for 2.5 years, for the majority of my work. And I've built my digital twin in Claude. I also have a similar digital twin in ChatGPT, where my digital twins understand my thinking, my frameworks, my approaches, case studies, playbooks. And it's not designed to do my work, they're designed to challenge my work, right? They're
Mm.
designed to challenge my assumptions, because I don't want an AI that simply validates my thinking. I want an AI that will challenge me, that will give me different perspectives so that I can understand other people and I can show up as a better human. So Claude is really good for that. And then with the launch of Claude Code and Claude Cowork, really leaned into the agentic aspects of that. ChatGPT is still super good, right? Like especially with codecs and things like that. really gotten good at creating images. I don't do a lot of images. In before with Sora, I was using it for that. But I don't tend to be more on the creative side, so my tech stack is going to look very different than somebody on the creative side. Gemini, really good in deep research. I love the Notebook LM part of it,
Oh,
because it's able to allow me to create content for different learning styles. So, for example, my newsletter, which is a long form text newsletter, I can create an AI podcast. I can create a cinematic video explainer, to cater to different learning styles, because not everybody is a reader. For example, I'm not a reader, right? Because I'm a very slow reader. I'm auditory learner, so I tend to listen to a lot of podcasts. And some people like videos. So, you know, Notebook LM within Gemini allows me to do that, to cater to different learning styles. And then Copilot, really good at being able to access, enterprise data, because you're deeply connected, especially for Microsoft shops, right? That kind of thing. And then Perplexity, just super good when it comes to localized content, up to date information, because it operates with a RAG model. So it's kind of like a database plus
yes.
AI on top of that. So there's lots of benefits to me, and my tech stack looks like that. And for others, it will look very different, because the budget is different, the
Yeah.
compliance requirements are different. So I don't judge anybody based on their tech stack. In fact, my mother used to say, "Hey, when it's raining, the best umbrella is the one that you've got." So
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
make the most of what you've got, right? So.
No, this is an amazing answer because you gave, I think, all the listeners today some direction into how they should think about these platforms. Because for those, I know there are a few students here as well who are starting out, and then Claude looks very wonderful. And there was recently a discussion which said you don't need anything, you only need Claude. It's incorrect because ChatGPT is still that go-to assistant that you can ask any question, and the quality of the answer is very customized to your personal style that you understand it quickly. Claude, 100% a great platform, but I think every platform has its use cases. And that gets me to a very interesting question that has come in the comments, which says, what parts of marketing or GTM do you think should never be delegated to AI entirely, regardless of how good the technology becomes?
I actually believe that it should always be human plus AI,
Mhm.
right? That unless it's truly just something that we have full confidence that we can automate it, and there will be no human in the loop required. And I think that will require a lot of testing and ultimately a lot of trust over time.
Yes.
And I don't believe that we've seen all of the potential risks associated with AI yet. So I tend to be more conservative when it comes to letting AI run autonomously.
Yes.
I tend to put human gates in workflows. And in some workflows where I have a bit more trust, I set the guidelines up front and then I review at the end. But I don't have any workflows today that runs autonomously from beginning to end without me taking a look at the results. So at least for today, my opinion, it needs to be human plus AI. And in fact, there's this study from a neuroscientist. Her name is Vivian Ming. And about a month
Mhm.
ago, she published a report in the Wall Street Journal. And basically, it says that um, hybrid teams, humans plus AI, outperform human only teams. However, human plus AI teams that primarily, humans that use AI primarily to validate their work, actually perform at a lower level than pure AI teams. So,
Oh.
what's interesting about that is she said the cohort that outperformed all other cohorts was a human plus AI team that primarily used AI to challenge their work. So,
Oh.
what that's the biggest finding, when if we only use AI to validate our thinking, that it becomes confirmation bias. But if we
Yes.
use AI as a sparring partner and to get different points of view, then we widen the aperture and it's an opportunity to innovate. So
Yeah.
just
No,
something
you're
to think
right.
about.
It reminds me of a conversation I was having with a bunch of founders and CMOs. And like, don't you feel AI has become like sycophant to the extent that it's like praising anything that I tells it? So like, how do I get it to challenge me? Because and then there is another research that I read about which said that human beings are more impressed there with their work now that they're working with AI. I mean, even for content writers who earlier, I mean, like 10 years back, the same person would have probably felt that a piece that he's written is absolute shit. Now when that person is writing a similar piece with AI, is feeling, oh my god, what a masterpiece have I created. And
Yeah.
this is yeah, that is exactly what you were also talking about, that if like human plus AI also, you can really underperform if you're not like really upping each other, and like the human also being is also upping their game along with like AI getting better. Otherwise
Yeah.
both of you are going downhill like in that snowball effect. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
So
going to feel like a rock star all the time if we primarily
yes.
use AI to validate our thinking, right? And like in her study, she actually said that only 5 to 10% of the people use AI as a sparring partner, which just tells me we have a lot of room to improve the way that we use and work with AI. I say things like challenge my assumption. What are the pros and cons? What are different ways to do this, right? Here's my way. What is a way that's 10 times better? Tell me why. I always ask why, right? Because we maintain judgment. We could get help from AI, but we make the final call. So that kind of maintaining critical thinking, it's less about the answer, it's how you got there, right?
Yes. That's pretty on point. So there's a question on should I learn Python and how MCP servers work, etc. So I think like a lot of technical stuff. Do I need to learn that to kind of build AI systems on marketing?
Well, it depends on who you are and what your job and what you like to do. There are absolutely people that, that's what they do, right? And they're enablers. And, as we scale organizations, not everybody will have that expertise. So we will need like an enablement team that will build those connectors. They will work with legal and IT to ensure that there's, security in place and that whatever connectors that we build, we have some guidelines around cost, token consumptions and things like that. So it's not just the technical aspects of building it, but also like beginning to think about the governance. And there will be people that do that, right? But there are others that are builders, builders of workflows, and they don't need to get down into that technical detail because an enabler will actually build it for them. For small businesses, for some, if you have the technical expertise, go do it. I always believe in lean into your strengths, right? Like if you love to do that, go do it. It's such an opportunity. But for others, you might have to bring in somebody with that expertise. So there's no wrong or right answer on this one. It's just a matter of what are you trying to do, where do you want to be an expert in, and how can you add value to the business.
So that gets me to another question that I have on safety and security, because I was talking about building agents with just Claude, and one, you do the work, you connect, like you use that Claude connector, you connect to your Gmail account, and there was this whole discussion on, can I really connect it to my Gmail, because okay, it'll give me a summary of unanswered emails and XYZ things. If I connect it to my Google suite, like the entire thing, it will tell me where the docs are and everything. But there's the third level wherein you give it browser access, and you tell the agent to go and do certain tasks. I mean, Lisa, you need to like. Do you think that this is an area where we're entering, where you can get hacked, and what kind of safety security measures you need to take? Because there are we are very enthusiastic, and as marketing heads, if something saves time with automation, gives me high ROI, and but how much of giving access to AI, like for example, browser access or Gmail or G Suite access, is the right way? Where do you draw the line? And as a company, so that was a question that came in, that as a company, how do I make these guidelines for people who are joining in, who are very enthusiastic, and in a startup we want results, we want quick movement. where, like, who makes the rules, because nobody knows. So some guidelines there, some guiding principles to teams which are growing, on what rules to set for the team.
Yeah, so there's this I can't remember who said it, but the the amount of value that we get out of AI is highly is proportional to our access, our understanding, and our acceptance of it, and our risk tolerance.
Hmm.
So for some, I'm going to give myself as an example, right? So I'm
Mhm.
pretty AI forward, and I do experiment, I do innovate. However, I've not connected AI to a lot of my systems. So,
Hmm.
for example, I might be apt to connect Gemini to my Google Drive and to my Gmail. More likely to do that than I would give the other AIs, because
Yes.
Google's already in there, right? And
Yeah.
you can already see that Gemini's already in there. It already knows my email. There's some level of trust that
Hmm.
Google has built as a result of me using G Suite for quite some time. Have I given it? Have I given Claude access to it? No, not yet.
No. That
Have
was
I
my
given ChatGPT access to it? No. I've given Claude access to a folder on my desktop. I've
yeah.
given Claude access to my browser, for a specific session, and it actually has to ask for permission. But that's Liza Adams, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where everybody is in their risk tolerance. There are some companies that I've worked with where they're on Copilot, and they're essentially saying, "Hey, Copilot, anything that Copilot already has access to, like SharePoint and things like that, that's fine. But if it needs access to something external, it has to go through a process that will be
Mhm.
vetted by IT." Now, for small businesses, here's what I'm finding. And it's not unilateral. And I always say that I don't have best practices, but what I have is pattern recognition, because any best practice today, has a very short shelf life.
Not
And
a bad
I do believe that they're still being written. But my pattern recognition kind of just shows me that smaller companies, especially those who are resource constrained and budget constrained, tend to be some of the most innovative ones. And they
thing.
also tend to be some of the most risk tolerant, mainly because there are not a lot of options, right?
Yeah.
You have to innovate. You need to do things differently because there aren't people that you can hire. There isn't a
Yeah.
lot of money, right? And there's also not as much to protect. Less to lose and more to gain, right? So, but that flips on the other side, a lot less risk tolerant when you've got a lot of things to protect. You're in a highly regulated environment, you have a lot of customers, those types of things. So I think you really need to think about that spectrum and determine the level of risk. There's this gentleman named Bryce Shalamel. He used to be the VP of AI at Moderna. If you guys
Okay.
remember during COVID, the one of the
Yes.
vaccines, he is now the head of enterprise, I can't remember their exact title, enterprise AI innovation at OpenAI. But when he was at Moderna, he created this matrix that basically says, if things fail, right?
Hmm.
Because we always think about the benefits of AI. What if it fails, right?
Yes.
He created
Yes.
this matrix that basically showed for specific workflows and tasks, will the failure affect just an individual, just a team, or the entire organization? That's the y axis, right?
Right.
And then the x axis is what is the impact? Is it just annoying all the way to catastrophic? And
Hmm.
depending where that workflow lands in that matrix, the level of governance and testing and all sorts of things, is different, right? So if you send an email that goes to thousands of people and it decimates your brand, that's a catastrophic impact. Will you allow AI, or at least have in your mind, the probability, what is the probability of that happening if AI does it on its own, right? What are the
Mhm.
human checks and balances that need to happen before that email goes out? So anyway, I hope that kind of helps
Yes,
frame the
100%.
question.
I think that you gave the audience here and the gentleman who asked the question how to think about the problem as well. That how much of access should be given is on if it fails. Because, like you said, we're all thinking about positive outcomes. When we are pitching AI and we are giving it access, the reason I decide to give it access is because I'm thinking about the amazing results that it will give me, all the time that I'll save, and all the new customers that I'll probably acquire because I've done this one change. But then it is a risk at the end of the day, and there needs to be some framework. So that's an amazing framework. There are a lot of questions but we are on time, so I'll take one last one. I'll combine two. One is on ROI of using AI in GTM. How do you look at it? What are the KPIs? And there's another one: how much of organizational readiness is needed, uh, rather than just like, or while plugging in AI systems, or is it like, does it work in silos also, that one
Okay,
team
so
can do
let's
it?
address the ROI piece. I love this question because you can't just set a goal, right, and meet it there. Because what I'm seeing right now is people are trying and they're experimenting, and then at some point they begin to think about how do we measure. So
Yes.
one of the CMOs that I worked with, they begin to reimagine the work around campaign development and execution, right? And they have some benchmark numbers of the performance of that campaign with an all human team. Now,
Mhm.
with a human plus AI team, where AI is being used for planning, for strategy, for testing, for insights, and it pulses the market, personalization of the emails, all the way into the SDR outreaches. That campaign is now yielding 35% better campaign performance than the previous one, right? So, whatever the metrics were, whether it's engagement, whether it's leads, in totality, that campaign is yielding 35% better. That same marketing team also achieved up to 75% faster content creation. So we have a benchmark before and we have a benchmark now. So that first one that I mentioned to you, remember the faster, better, different. When they
Yes.
worked differently, they were able to achieve 35% better campaign performance. Faster, 70, up to 75% faster content creation. And then I have another marketing team that achieved 2 to 3 times better campaign engagement. So
Wow.
because of the SDRs are now sending more personalized content, aligned to the specific vertical, aligned to the specific problem, they saw engagements go up from 50% all the way up to 40%. So those are just some examples. I think over time, we're going to need to really think about outside in kinds of metrics. It's not just going to be, MQLs and pipeline and things like that. Some of the more AI forward companies that I'm working with are thinking about customer outcomes. So when we
Mhm.
think about customer outcomes, we're now looking at net retention rate, customer
Yes.
satisfaction, and then time to value. So
Hmm.
those are
Yes.
now some of the more valuable metrics that we're beginning to rate ourselves against as we move forward with human and AI organizations.
That's very interesting. So there are KPIs that you can stick to, and you can see the improvement or the change that has happened. Is it considerable enough to integrate AI into the system, or should you stick to what you were doing? And what parts should AI be involved in, and see that difference? And the second, you mentioned that there are certain new KPIs also we need to start looking at. You did mention customer retention, and that'll be the last question for the day. How many can you just talk through some other new KPIs that you're seeing across the board with AI integration? Like,
Yeah,
and we'll end.
and you know what's interesting? They're not new, right? It's just being able to now have a benchmark from what it was with human teams, and then now human plus AI. But I think what's different is there's more focus on outcomes that are customer centered rather than bifurcated by function. So marketing MQL, sales close deals, and then CS, renewals. And we all
Yes.
know that we can each achieve those goals and the company still would not be doing so well, right? What AI does super well is it doesn't care about our silos. It
Hmm.
only cares about our outcomes, right? And in fact, there's this study at Harvard where it was 776 P&G professionals. When they gave AI to these professionals in cross-functional teams, the people cared less about the boundaries of their job because the AIs that they were using did not. So that's one of the things, is that I believe that the silos will come down as a result of AI. And that's good news because our customers don't care about our silos. It doesn't care about sales, marketing, and CS. It only cares about a seamless experience all the way through. So when that happens, you can begin to see how it gets easier to think about outcomes that are customer centered, like time to value, CSAT, and that retention rate, uh, to impact the business.
This is so beautifully put, and I don't think I could have summarized the session better than we have a comment here by Kerry, and it says accountability will always end up on the human. New phrase I heard yesterday was human on the hook, and I love that. I think this is the summary of the session because we're talking about human plus AI teams, and thank you, Kerry, for like actually commenting this on the session today, because that's how we sum it up. Because accountability will be human, so human beings cannot be replaced, because there were a lot of comments on humans getting replaced and all of that. I didn't take those up, but that's the answer. So we have an answer in the comment itself, that human on the hook. So a human being will always be on the hook, and the agents would be running. So you got to manage the agents like your employees and like your superhuman team of superhumans, Superman, and all your Spider-Man, and depending upon their capability, like superheroes have their own capability. All of these guys, all of your AI agents and agentic platforms will have their own capability. So
Yeah.
thank you so much,
Bonnie,
Lee.
one more thing. When AI makes a mistake, it will apologize profusely, but it will
Yes.
not pay the fine for you and it will not go to jail for you. So,
Yes. The catastrophic results that you talked about, that if it goes wrong, AI would just say, oops, there was this meme which talked about a mushroom, and this guy goes like, can I eat this mushroom? And AI says, yeah, this looks really good. I mean, it will have a lot of protein. Mushrooms are high on protein, XYZ. And then the next image is that this guy is lying on the hospital bed, and then the bot says, oops, sorry, I didn't realize this was a poisonous type. And I'm really sorry. So that's what it will apologize. It will say sorry, but who's held accountable? You are the
that's
one.
right.
Sam Altman, or like the heads of all these companies, nobody's coming to save you and taking responsibility and accountability. So human on the hook, you are the human on the hook. So thank you so much, Lisa, for taking the time today, and thank you everyone who joined in and for your wonderful questions. I did not have to go to the list of questions that I had prepared at all. We were just like having a conversation, legit live conversation with all of these beautiful comments pouring in with Lisa. Thank you everyone. Have a great day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.